Have you ever wondered why some men can spark desire in a woman without even touching her? Why just a question, asked at the right time, can stir something deeper than compliments or chemistry ever could? It's not about what he says, it's about what he makes her feel. And more dangerously, what he makes her reveal. That's the art we're diving into today. These aren't innocent questions. They are psychological keys, crafted through Machiavellian logic to unlock something raw and irresistible. Not through force, but through finesse. Not through impressing her, but by making her impress herself. In your presence. Let's begin with the question that softens her defenses before she even realizes it. Question 1. What's something about you that people always misunderstand? There are questions you ask to fill silence, and then there are questions that open silence wide enough for someone's truth to finally breathe. This is one of those. What's something about you that people always misunderstand? At first, it sounds polite, maybe even innocent. But underneath that simplicity is a question so loaded with emotional power that most people don't know how to answer it without pausing, because it cuts through their entire social mask. For most women, life is a balancing act of image. From childhood, they learn how to perform, how to be likable, charming, safe. They learn to smile through discomfort, to edit their emotions for other people's ease, and to play the role others assign to them. The sweetheart, the good girl, the ice queen, the cool one, or the crazy one. Each of those roles becomes a filter through which they're seen, judged, and misunderstood. So when you ask her this question, you're not just prompting a story. You're offering her a rare moment of emotional freedom. You're giving her permission to speak as her actual self, not her performed one. Psychologically, this touches on what's known as self-discrepancy theory, a concept in social psychology that refers to the internal tension between three versions of the self: the actual self, who she is; the ideal self, who she wishes she could be; the ought self, who she believes others expect her to be. That gap between actual and ought is where a quiet kind of suffering lives, one that most women don't even know they're carrying until someone makes them feel seen. When you ask what others get wrong about her, you're holding up a mirror, not to her image, but to her invisibility. You're telling her, I see the part of you that others overlook. And that kind of recognition doesn't create attraction. It creates emotional safety. And where there is safety, there is openness. And where there is openness, desire follows. But the power of this question isn't just in the words. It's in what you do after she answers. Your silence, your gaze, your calmness. When she says, people think I'm cold, but I'm actually really sensitive. And you don't rush to comfort or joke, but just nod. You validate something sacred. She sees that you're not shocked, you're not judging, you're not even reacting. You're witnessing. And in that moment, you become something far rarer than a flirtation. You become the first man who made her feel fully known. That's not seduction. That's something deeper. That's how obsession begins. Not with desire for your body, but for your presence. Question 2. When was the last time you did something completely out of character? This isn't a question. It's an emotional trapdoor. At first glance, it may seem like you're asking for a funny memory or a moment of spontaneity. But in reality, you're reaching into something far deeper. You're summoning what Carl Jung called the shadow, the hidden, often suppressed side of the self that contains the very traits we deny, reject, or fear. Every woman has a version of herself that slips past her own rules. The girl who acted on instinct instead of control. The woman who did something bold, reckless, or intensely emotional, something that didn't match the image others have of her. By asking this question, you're not seeking facts. You're asking her to remember the moment she broke free from her own identity. And more importantly, you're making it feel safe to do so in your presence. In that moment, you stop being the man who's just getting to know her surface. You become the man who welcomes the contradictions she usually hides. Psychologically, this opens the gateway to what Jung called integration, the process by which we become whole, not by rejecting the darker parts of ourselves, but by embracing them. And when a woman feels she can share her impulsive, rebellious, or even irrational side with you without being judged, it creates a rare kind of emotional safety, safety without censorship. Most men only get to know the version she curates. But the man who sees the version she surprises even herself with, that man touches something primal, not performance, but truth. And truth, especially when shared in a moment of disarmed vulnerability, is what makes you unforgettable. Question 3. Have you ever felt something for someone and couldn't explain why? At first, it may sound harmless, casual, even reflective. But the deeper truth is, this question is structured to bypass the rational brain entirely and awaken something far more unpredictable: emotional memory mixed with psychological dissonance. You're not asking her if she's attracted to you. That would be needy. Instead, you're pointing to a universal human experience, the mystery of irrational attraction. The moment when someone walks into your life and you feel something before your logic has even caught up. Now, here's where it gets powerful. The human mind, particularly the female psyche, cannot stand unresolved tension. It wants answers. It wants clarity. And this question throws her into emotional ambiguity, because if she is starting to feel something for you, even subtly, this question forces her to reflect on it. Have you ever felt something and didn't know why? She pauses. She thinks. And her subconscious begins trying to connect the dots. And suddenly, you are now one of those dots. This is what psychology calls cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable gap between what she feels and what she thinks she should feel. And the more she tries to rationalize it, the more emotionally invested she becomes. Because the mind resolves confusion not by ignoring it, but by circling back to it over and over again. So what do you do when she answers? Nothing. You don't overplay it. You don't say, "Oh, is that how you feel about me?" That would kill it. You just smile softly, hold eye contact, and say, "Sometimes the inexplicable is the most real," and then let silence do the rest. Because her brain may chase logic, but her heart, her anima, will chase feeling. And in that silence, she won't know why you suddenly feel so unforgettable, only that you do. Question 4. What kind of presence makes you feel seen without saying a word? This is not about compliments or charisma. This is about emotional resonance. You're asking her to describe an energy, not a look, not a behavior, but a presence. And if you ask it with composure, with genuine curiosity, you will force her to search through every memory where she felt truly understood. Not validated, seen. This hits the anima, Jung's term for the unconscious feminine image that governs emotion and projection. When she answers, she'll likely describe something you've subtly been doing. Listening without interrupting, holding eye contact without pressing, staying calm when others get reactive. Now here's the Machiavellian twist. Once she names those traits and starts recognizing them in you, she won't be able to unsee them. You didn't tell her what kind of man you are. You made her name it, and that kind of discovery sticks. Question 5. When do you feel most out of control? In a good way. Desire and control exist in a paradox. The more she loses herself in the moment, the more alive she feels. But very few men ever make her talk about that tension. This question slices right through her filters. It doesn't ask about love or relationships. It asks about surrender, about the release, about the sensation of slipping beyond her walls. And when she starts to describe that moment, when dancing, when traveling, when kissing someone she wasn't supposed to, you are suddenly placed in the emotional atmosphere of that memory. That's not storytelling. That's psychological immersion. And here's the game. Don't respond with commentary. Don't say, "Wow, that's hot." Say this instead. "There's something magnetic about the way you just described that." Now you're not just a man. You're a conduit, a trigger for her emotional high. And that's what makes you addictive. Question 6. What do you hide when you start falling for someone? This question bypasses attraction and goes straight into denial behavior. You're not asking if she's ever been in love. You're asking what she suppresses when it's happening, what her mind does to keep her heart from spilling over. Here's the genius of this question. It's not about the emotion itself. It's about the defense mechanism, and that reveals more than any direct question ever could. She might say, "I act cold," or "I overthink," or even, "I start avoiding them." Perfect. Because now, every time she does that with you, she's going to wonder, "Am I doing it again? Am I falling?" You've built a feedback loop in her brain, using her own words. And the best part? You're not confronting her with feelings. You're observing her patterns. That makes you dangerous, not because you push, but because you understand. And women don't forget the man who sees through their emotional camouflage. Question 7. What's something you wish someone had asked you, but no one ever did? This question is not about her past. It's about her longing. Most women are used to being asked the same questions about work, school, and hobbies. But this one is different. It asks her what she needed, not just what she experienced. And what you'll notice is this. She'll pause. Not because she's avoiding it, but because she's feeling it. The question touches an unmet need. And that need might not be logical, it might be emotional, spiritual, deep. You're awakening a part of her that's used to being ignored. Maybe she'll say, I wish someone had asked why I was so distant back then. Or, why I kept pretending everything was fine. You don't need to dig. You just listen. Nod. Hold the space. Because when a woman feels like you're the first person to care about a question she's waited years to answer, you're no longer in the potential partner category. You've stepped into the role of emotional anchor. And anchors are hard to forget. Question 8. What's the wildest thing you've ever imagined doing, but never told anyone? This question is crafted for one reason: to pull her shadow into the light without shame. Carl Jung believed that what we repress, what we label too much, too dangerous, or too taboo, holds the key to our psychological transformation. And most women are deeply attracted to the person who lets them dance with that shadow safely. Now, you're not asking for details. You're giving her permission to admit that her mind has wandered into territory most people never explore. She might laugh. She might blush. She might say, I probably shouldn't say. Perfect. That's the tension you want. Because now, every time she thinks about that idea, whatever it is, your face is there. You're the man who saw the wild without judgment. A soft reply like, you don't need to tell me. Just knowing you've imagined it is enough. Can shake something loose inside her. You're now part of her internal rebellion, and nothing bonds like shared secrets, even unspoken ones. Question 9. What kind of man makes you feel safest to be your most chaotic self? This question flips the script completely. Most men ask what she wants in a guy. You're asking what kind of presence lets her unravel without fear. That's not attraction. That's psychological surrender. Every woman has chaos. Not the destructive kind, but the emotional intensity, the mood swings, the passion, the doubts, the wild energy. And what she's never been asked is, who lets you be all of that and still makes you feel adored? By asking this, you're speaking to the anima, the feminine core that yearns not to be tamed, but held through the storm. And when she answers, she's describing the container she craves. The man who doesn't run when she's moody, who doesn't try to fix her, who just stays present. If you become that presence while she's describing it, you become the very answer she didn't know she was giving. Question 10. What's something that once felt wrong, but now feels unforgettable? This is the final strike. A question that ties memory, rebellion, and emotional imprint into one. It could be a kiss, a decision, a night she almost regretted, but now can't forget. What you're doing here is using reframing. You're asking her to take something that used to live in shame or confusion and recognize its beauty. And if you say it with the right tone, you become the redeemer of that memory, not by judging it, but by honoring its impact. She might say, there was someone I shouldn't have been with, but I still think about him. And you don't pry. You simply say, sometimes the wrong thing teaches us what the right feeling is. In that moment, you're telling her something important, that not everything powerful needs to make sense. And with that statement, you position yourself as the man who makes her feel deeply, even if it breaks the rules. They are emotional blueprints. They show you where her walls are, what emotions linger beneath, and, most importantly, how to make her feel seen in a world full of superficial games. The man who can unlock the anima is the one she remembers. If you're enjoying this breakdown of emotional strategy, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into seduction, psychology, and the hidden battlefield of desire. By now, You've seen how 10 carefully crafted questions can stir a woman's soul more powerfully than any compliment or clever pickup line ever could. But the true art behind these questions doesn't lie in their wording alone. It lies in what they awaken, and more precisely, how they awaken it. To understand this, we must shift our gaze inward, not at her answers, but at the emotional movements these questions create within her, because the goal was never to impress her. It was to access the private world beneath her social performance, the hidden layers, the contradictions, the shadow. Most men will never reach that level. They remain on the surface, asking what she likes, what her hobbies are, and how her day was. And because they never disturb the still water, they never see what's hiding beneath it. But these questions aren't made to skim the surface. They are designed to crack it. And the moment a woman begins to feel herself unraveling in your presence, not through pressure, not through seduction, but through reflection, you become different from every man before you. Not because you chased her, but because you understood what most ignore. These questions bypass logic. They awaken her through memory. When a woman responds to, "What do you hide when you start falling for someone?" she doesn't answer with theory. She answers with experience. She's not inventing a reply, she's recalling a moment. Her mind searches for the time she did exactly that, when she pulled away, got quiet, acted indifferent even while her heart was racing. And when that memory plays, guess who's sitting across from her? It's you. Psychologically, this is everything. Her brain begins linking your presence to that emotion, not because you forced it, but because you gently opened a door she didn't even know was there. It's not about the answer. It's about what answering it feels like. They create dissonance, and dissonance creates desire. Let's take another. Have you ever felt something for someone you couldn't explain? At first, it sounds innocent, but if asked in the right tone, at the right moment, it becomes a mirror, not a reflection of her thoughts, but of her instincts. You're triggering what psychology calls cognitive dissonance, when her feelings don't align with her beliefs. And when the brain encounters that split, it starts seeking resolution. If she's beginning to feel something for you already, just a flicker, this question throws it into sharp focus. She might laugh nervously, she might downplay it, but internally she's wondering, is this happening to me right now? That internal tension doesn't dissolve, it builds. And the only way she can resolve it is to see you again. They reach the anima, the unconscious feminine, and draw it forward. Carl Jung spoke of the anima as the inner feminine, the emotional, intuitive part of the psyche that longs to be mirrored, to be known. And for a woman, this anima is not just within her. It is also what she sees in you, when you become the mirror. When you ask, what kind of man makes you feel safest to be your most chaotic self? You are not flirting. You are challenging the deepest part of her feminine identity, the part that wants to surrender only when it feels seen. You are not asking her to be sweet. You are asking her to be wild, and to imagine the man who doesn't flinch when she is. That fantasy alone begins to rewrite her emotional blueprint. And if she looks at you and sees even a trace of that man, the anima awakens, and she starts projecting him onto you, not by choice, but by instinct. This is why she can't explain why she's drawn to you. It's not about looks or money, it's about presence, a specific emotional frequency only a few men know how to tune into. They do not manipulate, they reveal. It's easy to think these questions are some kind of psychological trick, but that's not the essence here. The goal is never to control her. It's to allow her to show you what she normally hides. These are not weapons in the traditional sense. They are scalpels. And when used gently, they cut through her performance and reach something real. Take the question, what's something that felt wrong, but now feels unforgettable? That doesn't cruelly expose her. It frees her. It tells her, I can handle your contradictions. I don't need you to be clean or polished or explain yourself. And that permission, rare, potent, sacred, is what creates emotional safety, the kind that comes wrapped in danger, the kind that makes her want to stay longer, linger deeper, and lose track of time when she's with you. This isn't a game. It's gravity. You're not trying to make her fall. You're allowing her to feel that it's safe if she does. The silence between your words is what marks her. If you've ever wondered why your words didn't land, even if they were smart or sincere, it's because you didn't leave enough space around them. Space is where emotion breathes. When she finishes answering something vulnerable, do you rush to reply? Do you compliment her, joke, try to ease the tension? Or do you pause, hold her gaze, and simply let it settle? Because it's that moment, the one where she realizes she's been seen, not judged, that stays with her. It's not the question. It's how quiet you are after she answers it, how steady you stay, how little you need to fill the silence. That's the signature of a man who doesn't chase approval. A man who understands that stillness seduces more than speed ever will. So what happens now? You don't use these questions like bullets. You use them like brushstrokes, slowly, intentionally. Only when the moment feels right. You let her reveal herself, not because you pushed, but because you were the only one patient enough to listen without interruption. And when she leaves that conversation, even if nothing romantic happened, something emotional did, she'll think about it later, in the shower, in the car, as she drifts off to sleep, and she won't be able to explain why she keeps returning to that moment. But you will, because you were the first man who didn't try to sell himself. You made her see herself more clearly, and she'll always remember the man who gave her that. If this opened something new in you, if it gave you a new lens to see not just her, but your power of presence, then like this video. Subscribe for more content that isn't about tips and tricks, but transformation. Because in the end, words are not just words. In the hands of a strategist, they become mirrors, maps, and emotional magnets. You don't need to impress her. You just need to be the man who finally asked what no one else ever dared. See you in the next one.